Yeah. Well, hello everybody, and welcome to today's webinar, Why Your Team Needs Navisworks, a Leadership Overview. My name is Jasmine, and I will be your host here at Evolve MEP, a place where software is built by MEP contractors for MEP contractors. We're thrilled to have an incredible speaker with us today, Jared Sutliff, who is a co-founder of BIMTM and a senior BIM specialist. If you have questions during the presentation, feel free to drop them in the chat or Q&A section. Don't worry if you miss anything. We will have the recording available to you on Evolve's website after the webinar. And with that, over to you, Jared.
Sounds great. Thanks, Jasmine. And as Jasmine said, my name is Jared Sutliff. I'm a co-founder of BIM Technology Management and a senior BIM specialist. Our partnership with Evolve is a really great thing. We help with basic Revit training and functionality of the program, and that gets you ready for utilizing the Evolve plugin and what that can do to streamline your process. Beyond Evolve, we work exclusively with general contractors and MEP subcontractors, anywhere from lead coordination to MEP production, coordination services, and then also our Revit and Navisworks training as well. If you're new to BIM, we can be your guide. If you already have a BIM service, we can just be an extension of your team. Jasmine, I think we've got a couple of polls. Can we get the first one going? Of the attendees here, we want to know what your role is within the construction industry, specifically for this webinar being focusing on Navisworks and Navisworks Freedom, and where you're at, whether you're office, whether you're field, or whether you're actually one of the BIM technicians. So we'll give that just another minute here. Actually, it looks like we may have just about everybody signed in here. So by the looks of it here, we've got a handful of you are office personnel, but the majority for this webinar are BIM personnel. And then with that being said, if we can get the other poll here. And this is I'm just gonna ask about your Navisworks experience, as this webinar is focused mainly on people who haven't used it before, and specifically field team and or the project management team to utilize the models to your advantage. So I'll give this just another few seconds here. All right. Well, it looks like we've got a good variety of response here. We've got a couple of people who have never used it before, a couple that know the basic tools, and some that have used it for years. So a nice variety. So getting into this, for those that aren't very familiar with it, the difference between Revit and Navisworks is that Revit is primarily design focused, where you actually model and create the individual parts and pieces. You can change the elevation, information within it. It creates detailed building models, and you also need a license for Revit, where Navisworks is more coordination focused. You're able to combine the different models from different trades, do it for clash detection. The software is really easy to review and access model information. The nice thing about it is you can lock a version in time called a federated model, and Navisworks Freedom, which we've got the QR code on the screen, should take you directly to Autodesk's website where you can download a version of Navisworks Freedom. So some of the other great things, and we'll be going through this in a little bit. You can verify locations compared to the sign-off model and installation, utilize it for accurate dimensions, and you can also utilize the section tool to crop the model to specific areas that you need to show. Navisworks itself has 3 different versions here. And so there's the Freedom, which is a limited version, Navisworks, which is expanded tool set, and then Manage, which is the full gamut, which allows you to do the clash detection, coordination, etc. The 3 main files that Navisworks utilizes is NWDs, which is taking all of the different models that emerge together, and that's that federated model locked in time. The NWC, which is one of the exports available out of Revit and some of the other 3D modeling softwares. And then the NWF brings all of those different merged models together, which is then what we utilize. So getting started here within Navisworks, when you first open up Navisworks Freedom, there's going to be a few things that are important to start off with. First off is going into the options editor. So under the N in the upper left-hand corner, and this window, we can expand it out a little bit. The most important thing to start off with is under interface, going into our display units. And we want to change this from meters to feet and inches fractions. And then for our display precision, you can choose any one that you want. I'll typically stick with a 16th or an eighth of an inch. So whichever one is best suited for you and what you need to utilize within Navisworks here. The other options within here, we'll be touching on it a little bit later on, is our quick properties. This is going to look kind of Greek to you at this point, but when we jump through some of the properties within each of the modeled elements, that'll start making a little bit more sense. The other nice thing too is when you have your options set up and are ready to go for your team or your company, you can export the options and then choose which of the elements you want. I'd recommend just taking them all, because then you're not going to miss anything. And then once you export this, you can share this with your internal teams, whether it be the BIM department, the field, or the office. And then is all they have to do under the options editor is import that specific file. And so we don't lose anything. I'm going to hit OK here. And we're going to start off, and I have the sample model here with the evolve sample models here. So I'm just going to open up this file. And one of the things to note with Navisworks Freedom is we're limited on the options of file types that you can open. And this NWD here, as I said earlier, it's that snapshot that's locked in time. Typically, the general contractor or whoever's leading coordination will create an NWD on, say, a weekly or daily basis, depending on how the project's set up. And then that's what you can download locally to have it run a little bit more efficient. But you'll have to make sure that whoever you're working with creates this NWD format. And then that's just the easiest way to get into the model here. So getting started, there are a couple of tool sets and a couple of windows that I like to have open all the time, because then as I'm going through and selecting some of the elements, I'll be able to see the information that I'm looking for. So first off, I always want to have the properties window open. And so under our home tab here, we've got a couple of different things, and our properties are located here. We can also find our properties window under the view tab. And then we've got our little windows drop down right here. And this will give us all of the options of any of the additional windows that we want to utilize. I also like the selection tree, because then it gives me a little bit more information as to the files that are available within this in this NWD, and that'll help you navigate and find which subcontractor the model is a part of. I will also create or turn on the saved viewpoints. And this is important because any of these viewpoints, it gives you a location that will automatically jump back to a specific camera spot. So let's pretend you're running around and all of a sudden you're lost in space and you can't find the model at all. The saved viewpoints set up properly, you'll be able to just select that and it'll bring you back to that specific point within the project. And then I also like to have the plan view. And what the plan view is going to do here for you, I have it hidden somewhere. Well, the plan view, I'm not sure where it is. I must have it docked in a different spot here, but what that would do is that would give you a separate window with like a top-down view of your model in your building. And so it'll just help you understand and navigate to where you're at when you're actually in and flying around. So as we proceed, there's a couple of tools, and it's going to be a little bit of a pain in the butt to get used to the tool. But I recommend forcing yourself to learn the walk command. It's a little bit like a game, and it utilizes your mouse for all of the tools. So as you can see, the little feet icon here, if you left click and hold down the left click button and you push your mouse forward, you'll walk forward. And if you pull the mouse backward, you walk backward. And if you turn to the right or turn to the left, you can see it just kind of rotates the camera. And then any one of these combinations, so as you can see, I'm able to move forward and roll around. So it's kind of like you're walking through the building utilizing the mouse. The other nice thing is it also combines your pan into the single tool here as well. So if you have a mouse that has a middle mouse button, if you depress the middle mouse button, you can see it's the pan. And now what that allows us to do is move up, down, left, right on a single plane within the space here as well. And then if you roll the mouse button backwards, you'll tilt the camera up. If you roll the mouse button forward, you'll roll the camera down. That being said, there are also the other tools available on our little quick access toolbar over here. So if you hover over, it'll bring up a little window here. So our pan. And then now with that tool selected, I'm going to left click and hold. And you can see as you move and drag the mouse around, you're able to shift and move via the pan, which is the same as the depressing the middle mouse button. We can also use the zoom window. So if we select this tool and you left click and hold and drag, you can see this brings up this little box. And what that'll do is that'll zoom into that portion of the model that you were trying to focus in on here. Our orbit command does just that. It's a specific pivot point on our building, and you can see it's kind of off to the corner of the building here. The pivot point has given me some trouble in the past. Sometimes it'll snap to a point of the model that's, say, like 10 miles away. And as soon as you rotate, you lose track of where you're at. But this is an option. We even select, if you select the object, then it will allow you to focus in on that as well. And have your pivot point in the center of that object. And what I did is I just did a right click here, which allows me to select a specific object. So for instance, if I come into my main room here and I can left click and I can select this clearance zone. And then with my orbit, you can see it kind of centers in on that selection. The next one is look around, which is actually pretty nice if you've got yourself into a room, say like the electrical room here, and you select your look around command. It just rotates the camera on a swivel. So you can really get an idea and a sense of what's going on as if you were standing in that room specifically. And then the last one here is our select. And what that'll allow you to do is to go through and you can use your select. Instead of right clicking to select the objects, you'll be able to select each of the individual components within your model with that. So with our walk command here, I will go back into our starting view. And if you happen to have multiple monitors and you want to free up the space in your main window here, any of these additional tool windows, so long as they have the pin command. So it's an auto hide. And if you have them unpinned, you'll see it just puts the tab on the side. If you have that where you pin it to your main window, You can grab the title here as well. And then now that brings this into a secondary window that I can bring off to a different screen. If I want to place it in a different part of the window, I can do that as well. And as I left click and hold, you can see that it gives me some options here as far as these little icons, and then it shows you the size and the space that I'm able to do that in. And if I go to the center here, it's just going to leave it as a free secondary window. So in this case, I'll leave my selection tree tied to the left-hand side. And same thing with the properties and the save viewpoints. The other nice thing that you can do as well, if you want to have them all grouped together, if I come over to my properties here, you can see I can tie them into just this secondary properties window. So if I want to have them side by side, I can. Otherwise, if I hover over the top, it'll actually put them into individual tabs that you can bounce back and forth. So it's great that it gives you the options and the flexibility to set this up exactly how you want, which makes sense to you, and give you the tools that you need and that you utilize most often. And as you can see, when I brought my selection tree over, it still kept the properties tabbed together with that. And to move that is all I have to do is grab the tab there. And now you can see it be separated out those windows. And I'm just going to dock this back over here. So now we'll jump into the individual models that we have here itself. So this is that Navisworks document, NWD, that I spoke of earlier. And it is combining these individual Navisworks cache files that were exported from Revit. So within each of these, I can select one of these and it'll highlight everything that's involved within this specific NWC. And you can also hide these elements, which in my selection tree here, I right click and I can hide. So that allows you a lot of flexibility to be able to turn models on and off if you need to see something specific or be able to find a location within the building, let's say like the electrical closet, if you don't have any viewpoints set up for it. And then once you feel like you're pretty safely in this electrical closet, then what you can do is you can right click again and just use the same hide command or Control H. And then now that turns the sample model structural architectural back on. And same thing goes with the EM and the EE, so the Evolve Electrical, Evolve Mechanical models that we have here. The coloring of the models that we have here, this is all done within Navisworks Manage. And so if the colors haven't been adjusted before the NWD is created, it'll just be the standard textures and materials that come out of Revit or the 3D software program that you utilize to create the export from. So you may see this may be quite a bit different. Oftentimes, general contractors will have what's called an appearance profiler to color code the different systems accordingly. So for instance, in our case here, I'm going to use my selection. I'm going to select this pipe here. And you can see that it's bringing us to, it'll automatically open up all of the different subcategories here to where this specific element resides within the different categories of the export. And so we don't have a ton of information up in our properties right now, and that's because it's selecting just a very specific element. So if we go up one more level to the main element here, now you can see in our properties window, we have a lot more information available to us. And this is where utilizing the model to your advantage is great, because any of the property information that's put in, say, Revit, that'll come out in the element here itself. And so you can see we have these properties. And so these are all the different specific elements within Revit within this pipe itself. And now you're able to take a look at this and start gathering some additional information if for some reason it wasn't available on, say, install drawings or some other information that was sent your way. So in this case, this happens to be a chilled water supply. I know the middle elevation on the end is 9 foot, 11 and a half. The inside diameter is a 2.5 inch pipe. The length is 19, 7 3/4. And so you can see all of these different elements. This is starting to help with knowing what it is that you're looking at and being able to verify this compared to other elements within your project. And if we go into our selection here, and you see how it keeps going down to the base, we can change that. And so if we right click our selection, actually this might even be, my apologies, I'm so used to using Navisworks Manage that you're able to set up what you select when you do select an object. Could be that I need to do it here. No, okay. So just keep that in mind as you're going through. If you're not seeing the elements that you want in the properties, it will be in your selection tree. And then just make sure that you have the proper part of it so you can get to the element. I touched base a little bit on the properties here. There's also an element that you can use within your options as well, the quick properties. And so these definitions here that we have, the category is the tab, in this case, of the properties of the item that you have selected. So with these quick properties, once they're set up for your department or your company, and then when you export these, this will go across. So you could set up your options for, say, the field, and you could have it set up for like the BIM department if they want to have different quick properties. So as you can see right now, the category is going to be item and the property is going to be name. So if I go into my item, the property is the name. So with the quick properties, it's going to pull this. If this isn't really descriptive and it's not what you want to see, then we can adjust and change that. And what the quick properties are here, if we do turn them on under our home tab, if you hover over an element, it brings up this little kind of sticker window and it gives you that additional information. The little sticky window won't stay there forever. It'll hang out for a while and then it'll eventually disappear. But then any element that you hover over, you can see it'll bring up that specific information. So if I'm interested in mechanical pipe or supply and return here, what I can do is under my options, I'm going to change the category because I don't want the item. I actually want it from the element. So my category now is going to be element. And then now my property is what's in this column here. And so I want to have it be, in this case, the EM service name. So when I'm in here, if I just hit E on my keyboard, it'll bring you down to the E category. And so EM service name. And as you can see, there are a lot, so it might take a little bit to get into the into exactly what you want it to be. And I also want to know the bottom of pipe, let's say. So I want to go into element again, and then bottom. So element and bottom. And then if I want to add any additional information, which in this case I do, I can go to add element here. And it's going to add another one. So you can see it saved my element service name, element bottom, and then added it to the top here. And in this case, I also want to know the diameter as well. So I'm going to go into element and we're going to go to diameter. And there are a number of different ones that you can see here. And that's based off of the different models. So we have the EE, the electrical model, the EM, mechanical model, and then the EV, the overall architectural sample. So it may be a little testing and practice here to figure out exactly which one is giving you what you want. Sometimes it works without any issue. So now that we have those definitions set up, I'm going to hit OK. And then if I hover over, you can see that I've got the chilled water supply and I've got the bottom. So it happens that my diameter isn't the correct diameter. So if I go back into here, and if I change the diameter to, let's say, the first one now, and we hover over, so that's not it either. So when setting these up for your individual department or the field, if you create an NWD of just your specific trade model, then it'll limit the number of properties that are available, which is going to be helpful when dialing in your quick properties for your field teams. All right, and that's not giving me what I wanted either. Let's do, instead of tree diameter, let's do inside diameter. And all right, hopefully, yeah. There we go. So finally came across the right model parameter. And so now you can see inside diameter we have 2.5, the service name, and the element to bottom. All right. So any questions thus far? I know I'm throwing a lot of information at you for those that are not very familiar with Navisworks and how it all comes together. Take questions now, or if you want to hold them till the end, I guess can cover specific items as well.
Looks like no questions at this time, but feel free to add your questions into the Q&A and we will get to them.
So I'll reduce the size of my windows here. And as far as any of the specific elements within your Navisworks file here, if we do have, as I've gone through the viewpoints here, so it'll automatically get you into the save viewpoint. And one of the other tools that's incredibly important, and we set it up initially, and I have had field teams that I've worked with in the past who have asked, they go, is there a way that you can change the units, because we're tired of doing metric conversions, and because I'm just in this all the time, and that was not something that I had thought about. I go, oh yeah, of course. So instead of it being having to do the conversions, that's why it's important, and I have you set that up the very first thing that you do. And there's a couple of different measuring tools that we can do. You can do single point to point. You can do multiple points. You can do a line. You can accumulate the total length of the distances that you're selecting. You can also get a specific angle of your 3 points. You can start defining and getting areas. And then you can also the display coordinates for a single point. I often use and stick with the point to point, because as I'm doing coordination, I may need to know the difference between the X, the Y, and the Z. And in this case, since I'm utilizing the points, as you can see here, the X, Y, and Z pop-up window here. So my straight line to line is 9.6, but we know that's not the elevation to the bottom of the fixture, because we have our X, Y, and Z dimensions from the point to the point. It's kind of hard to see here, but Actually, that was a pretty good set. So you can see the dashed lines here that show where the each of the individual dimensions are coming from. And so it's a great way to verify if you need to check out, say, like sleeve locations, or verify the height based off of the coordination. You can use the dimension tool, or once again, the properties here as well. And it should all match. And in this case, the elevation from level is 10 foot 12 inch, so 11 feet. So that happens to not be to the bottom of the fixture itself. It's to the top up here. So let's do a quick check.
We do have a question in the chat.
Yes.
It says, at times it can be hard to see what viewpoint you have selected with the very light green highlight. Is there a way to challenge or to change this setting so you can more easily identify which viewpoint you have selected?
So you're talking about the highlight here. Yeah, because as soon as you move away, it will unhighlight that the viewpoint that you're in, because now you've moved away from that specific camera location. So I don't necessarily have a good way of maintaining the highlight on in the viewpoints as far as which area you've been in. One thing that this actually probably is just a manage. Yeah. In manage, you can create folders like you see here, and then you can organize the viewpoints within each of those folders so that you can have, let's say you want 4 or 5 viewpoints of this specific closet. You can get those created, put those in a folder, and say room number, A52, and then you'll know that that's that exact room number that you have.
We also have a second question. How can I use this to communicate with my BIM team more effectively? Am I able to mark up issues?
Unfortunately, with Freedom, you're not able to mark up issues. There is the comments window, but within this, I haven't used this a whole lot, unfortunately, because I almost exclusively use manage. So that's how I'm able to relay a lot of that information by creating viewpoints or utilizing some of the other tool sets that are available that are plug-in to Navisworks. So that would actually be something I'd have to explore a little bit more. One of the ways that I have utilized the communication back and forth from the field team is if they are in a specific area and they fly to the area in the room that they want, they can create some dimensions. And then what they'll do is they'll do a screenshot of that specific area and then send that to me with a description of the questions that they have, or even better yet, instead of going back and forth between like emails and screenshots, I prefer actually hopping on a call or heading down to the field and sitting directly with the foreman to resolve a number of the issues right there with their direct input, instead of trying to work and make some assumptions. Screen shares often work really, really well because we're looking at the exact same thing. You're able to ask the questions as we're viewing a specific area and allow us to get through those that way.
We do have 2 more questions if you'd like to continue on that, or are you okay to answer these 2 regarding BIM 360 and Autodesk Construction Cloud?
Yeah, we can take those.
Okay, so the first one is this the same as the BIM 360 web viewer on my tablet?
This is not. So this is a separate program. The functionality is similar-ish, but since this is a standalone program, it will give you more functionality than the web viewer. the web viewer is nice because you can still fly around, and it will you'll be able to go through the walls and look at all the different elements. But in my experience, the Navisworks Freedom viewer and the NWDs, it's a lot easier to fly the model and explore the areas and elements that you need, especially when getting into the different levels and models. If you need to turn certain things off, say like if we want to turn off walls, we can turn off the walls, and it's a lot easier doing that in here just by selecting and hitting Control H or right clicking and hiding the specific elements. Not saying it's impossible, just in my experience, it's a lot easier utilizing the standalone software.
Awesome. And for the next question, does Navisworks Freedom integrate with Autodesk Construction Cloud issues?
That I don't know how to answer that, unfortunately. Once again, that's my primary experience with Manage. I know Manage, there's a collaboration tab, which then allows you to turn on the issues themselves. I think that would be an excellent addition if Autodesk would add that to Freedom, not to say create issues, but at least to view them. I think that would be an awesome change to Freedom. It is unfortunately lacking. I do understand why, but there are some minor things that I think would really improve the overall experience with Navisworks Freedom, i.e., being able to create your viewpoints. So from the previous question about being able to share the information from the field team back to the BIM team, if you'd be able to create your own viewpoints and then export those, I think that would be an excellent way to merge the tools for those specific teams much better. So a great thing to write to Autodesk and say, hey, this would be awesome and much better if we'd be able to do this.
Hey, Jared, I actually have a question of my own. But before that, I just want to say great job with this intro. I feel like the Navisworks Freedom is so much cooler than I thought it would be because I myself have only used Navisworks Manage. So
Mhm.
really my question is, can you kind of run us through some of the highlights that you get with Navisworks Manage versus Freedom?
Sure. So some of the highlights that you get with Manage versus Freedom, the biggest one is being able to run clash models. So for instance, like if I go above ceiling here, we can see that there's a clear issue with the conduit at structural steel. In Freedom, you actually have to fly around and find this. Whereas if we had this in Manage, we would be able to say, hey, I want to clash all electrical versus all steel. And then it would highlight those specific elements. Another great thing is being able to create viewpoints and be able to mark up viewpoints. So I would actually be able to put text on the screen. I'd be able to draw arrows, lines, circle items. And actually, if you give me just a minute, I know this isn't exactly part of the plan, but I'll open the same model here in Manage so we can do a direct side-by-side comparison here. The other great thing that you can do as well is you can you can make what's called a search set. So if I wanted to find, for instance here, so like this particular conduit, if I wanted to find everything that came from, say, the panel 2B, electrical 1, I could make a search set that would find all of those, and then I could color code those slightly different so that I would know, oh, hey, fantastic. These are the conduit runs that I need to focus on. This is where we're installing next. And then you have that color coded difference. So like, for instance, if I do 2B, LEC1, so you can see it's going through and it's finding each of those elements that have that that parameter within it. So, and you can see the selection tree. I can also go and I can select the same element. I can select the same type, or I can select the same name. So if I select because this panel was selected, and then I can select everything that has the same name, so i.e. EQ panel board, then I can hide unselected. So that's going to turn everything off except the panels that I have. So you can see this is where all of those panels reside. And the other nice thing too is if you have any elements selected and you use your view cube, you can select any one of these highlighted elements of the view cube, and it'll take you right to that specific object, i.e. this panel board itself. Actually, let me go there. Then I can focus in just on that one selected element. So we do have this open, so bear with me for a second. I'm going to open up the same file here and manage so we can see the direct side by side. Okay, so here we have manage. And as you can see, there's a lot of additional options up here. So when we were talking about the ACC issues, this is the coordination tab, and then you can go into your manage issues. I happen to have it open tabbed over here. So that's how you can go through. If you use other plugins, namely like the BIM 360 glue is actually old and has been replaced by the coordination. Bluebeam. So there are a number of different options. The search sets. So like for instance here, if I only want to find, and I set these up previously, they didn't come with, so this is some of the background work that needs to happen. If I only want to see the supply duct, I can select that. And now I can see in my selection tree here, everything that is the supply is selected. And then if I hide unselected, we can see this is our supply duct in the sample model. Some of the other things, so how we get the search sets is our find items. So as we saw in Freedom, this is my only option here for finding items. Where in Manage, I actually can go through a specific model. Once again, all of these different property categories, or the different categories, the properties, conditions. So if I want it to contain, equals, not equal, etc., I can change that. And then the clashes itself, this is where we can create like electrical versus structure. And then the one thing that you do need to make sure that you have on is your models, because if I'm clashing against nothing visible, there's nothing to clash against. So that's important to have all of the models visible within your view here. And additionally, with the search sets, I can actually set up my sets. So I can go by, so let's say for this case, I want to do electrical versus structural steel. I'm doing my full model versus my search set for steel. And then I can run this test. And we can see there are 28 clashes. So like I said, that's some of the big differences between Freedom and Manage. Addition to being able to save viewpoints, import, export viewpoints. We can add files, where Navis Freedom, you can only open an NWD. In this case, I can bring in a number of different model types between NWCs, IFCs, OBJs, point clouds. There's a ton of different file types I can bring in. So, and then I can, so in this case, I back into Navisworks Freedom here now. There's one other thing I did want to show that is a capability within Freedom, thankfully. So I've got everything hidden. So instead of trying to find and select each of the specific items. There's this unhide all, which brings you right back to having all of your objects unhidden. So I'm just going to back out here. And let's say I don't need to see, like I want to see like the overall of like the first floor without all of this, the second floor visible on here. If it's not preset up with a viewpoint, I can go under viewpoint here. And then if I enable sectioning, now this gets a little cumbersome. It takes a little bit to understand and kind of figure out how it all works. Is there's a couple options. I can do a planes based, so you've got your 6 sides of your cube that you can move independently, or a box. And if we do a box, you can move all of them together. But then like your scaling and how you change where the different planes are is a bit more cumbersome. So I prefer going with the planes itself. And our drop down here, so our plane 1 is visible. So you can see it's cutting through the building and it's aligned to the top. So it's the top of the 6 sides of our cube. So within that, we've got our tools where I can move. And so if I select this, since it is our top, I only want to move it up and down. And as you can see, it's slicing through the building really nicely. So I wanted to see below first or below our second floor here. And so if I bring it down and I cut just through the concrete of the first floor, now you can see that, okay, now I'm imagining that I'm flying above, able to see how everything kind of comes together without having anything in the way. Oftentimes, if it's not quite set up properly, your section cut will be way off into nothing. So let's pretend we can't see that. It's like, oh, well, that's great. I can go through and I can turn off my top plane here. And then what I can do is I can use my selection tool. I'm going to select the roof here. And what I can do is I'm going to fit my plane, my top plane to the selection. And so when I hit that, and then if I turn my plane back on, you can see now my plane has been aligned to the section or to the object that I had selected. And so now I can bring it down. So if at any point any of your selection or your section planes have been just kind of off in the middle of nowhere, that's the easiest way to bring them to exactly where you want them to be. And conversely, we can turn on our other planes here. And so if I select, I've got to make sure I'm selected here to adjust. So my plane 2 is the bottom. So you can see it's cutting the building just looking the other way from bottom up. And then same with 3, 4, 5, and 6. So if we go into 3, you can see it's our front. And if we are looking at our view cube here, our front is pointing away from us. So if I bring this away, you can see it's showing the building there. If I go to the back, we're at the back, so it's cutting. And so now we can bring it that way, so on and so forth. So we can use a combination of these section planes to be able to see different parts and elements of the building. And the fit selection, you can use that for any of the individual planes that you have as well. That's the front plane. That's not this. There we go. So then you can bring this down and away. The other nice thing that you can do as well, let's say you're in a big building and it's divided into like, say, 6 equal parts based off of a certain grid spacing. We can also link our planes together here. So I'm going to leave the front and back off. And I want my right and left plane to be, let's say, oh, this is 20 feet apart. If I link my planes, now as I move them, it moves them together. So you can set up different chunks within your building. Any other questions at this point? And there's one other thing that I am going to show. So while other questions are being gathered here. So there are a lot of times where you want to see something, but there's other things in the way that are blocking your view. Like I want to see kind of what's going on behind this duct here, or if we have room on either side. We can change our file options. So under our home tab, if we go to file options, our clipping planes here. So our near clipping plane is where, kind of like the section, is where I'm telling it I want to stop showing geometry. And so for my near clipping plane, I'm going to change this to a fixed distance. And it depends on the model. I have no idea where this is actually going to start, but I'm going to start at 1. And you can see it barely changed the clipping right here. So I'm going to go back to like the 0.1, and you can see the ductwork here is blocking the entire view. So now I'm going to change this to 10 so you can really see what this does. And so now you see it pushed where the camera, and so this is just the camera. This isn't one of our section planes, because as you can see, as I'm rotating, you're seeing other elements grow. And that's because the section plane is that certain spot based off of just my camera position. So if you ever find yourself in a view that like, I need to see this a lot closer, but I can't get any closer to it to view it, this is the reason why. So just remember your file options and change your fixed distance. In this case, I'm going to drop it down to 3. Well, now it's like, holy cow, where did I go? But that's because our section is our clipping plane for our camera is much closer to the camera. So now you can see we can get into this and see what's going on here a lot closer. So even with Navisworks Freedom, there are a ton of ways that you can use it. And let's say, I guess one other thing that we can do here as well is there also is this realism. So we can turn on collision, i.e. you can't like walk through any geometry. We can turn on gravity, and we can do third person. So let's say I'm in the ceiling here, and there are keyboard shortcuts to these. So if for some reason your gravity's turned on, so you see how we drop down. And the thing is, I can't, if I pan up and as soon as I move, I snap back down to the floor itself. And then the other thing is as well, like if with collision on, if I try and walk through these pipes, you'll see it kind of jiggles a little bit because we're quote unquote climbing over these pipes. And then I won't be able to go through the wall like it looks like I am because of the camera clipping plane. But if I change this back to like 0.1, you'll see that I'm kind of stuck behind the steel here. So if you run into something where you can't fly through, remember that is because of your realism. And so you can have your, like if we go into third person, you can kind of see like it backs up. So it's like hey, this is, I'm assuming a 6-foot person. So you can kind of see how that would look from a different point of view. I'm not a big fan of the third person view, but it is an option there.
Awesome. And we just have a few minutes left. I do have, so this isn't so much of a question as an observation, they said, but they would like to let you know that that is one majestic beard you have and appreciate the holiday spirit. I would
Thank you.
second that myself. And yeah, so no other questions other than that, just some appreciation sent your way.
Well, wonderful. Thank you, everybody. Really appreciate you joining us for this webinar with Evolve MEP, and appreciate the holiday cheer. It's something I've done for ever since college. Really, is early December. I wear my Santa hat, and I wear it all the way through Christmas with the majestic beard. I have a couple of times in stores, kids get really wide-eyed, and I just go, and then I shoot around the corner of the aisle and disappears. So it's a lot of fun. I like the holiday cheer, and hopefully it makes people smile.
Amazing. Well, I will go ahead and close us out. Thank you so much, Jared, and a big thank you to all of you for joining us. As a reminder, we will be adding this recording on Evolve's website under the On-Demand Webinars tab. I believe BIMTM will also be adding this webinar to their YouTube. And thanks again for spending your time with us. I hope you have a great rest of your day and have a great happy holidays. Thank you
Yep.
so much.
Happy holidays. Thanks, everybody.